Have you heard of people losing their homes to fraud in real estate sales? Well, I have, and my guest actually has as well. This is Micheline with WFG Title here in the Austin area. They are a title company that we use primarily. And so what I want to do today is go through the biggest common fraud cases that we've seen, and I want to use this as a way to protect you as a buyer and you as a seller, because some of these actually happen to unsuspecting homeowners, and we're going to talk about that. And the biggest one happens almost every day, and probably every 5 minutes we'll make up a stat here. Micheline, talk us through some of the most major ways of fraud, and then I want to get into some solutions, because the whole point of this channel is to give you good information, but we want to make sure that people have solutions if they are finding themselves in this, or some things to help prevent.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeremy. So one of the common ones that we see all the time is wire fraud. Everybody hears about it, and if you're in the real estate industry, you're going to hear it from every angle possible, right? So we see wire fraud on a regular basis. We are taught about it all the time. It is a billion-dollar business. It's a good business to be in, but only a few million are recovered every year. So you really need to be diligent. You need to try to protect your clients. And one of the ways that you can do that is make sure that they are verifying who is sending them information during the transaction. So we want to make sure that you're watching all the incoming emails. You want to keep an eye on those bottom lines with everybody's picture and make sure that the signature and name matches the email. We want to check for those small differences, because that can make a really big difference in who is actually trustworthy.
Yeah, so here's basically what happens is that somebody in a cafe somewhere else, not even here in Texas or wherever, like they're not even in the United States, they find a transaction that's happening. They mask their email to look like I've actually had it happen where they look like it was the lender that we were working with, and there was one slight difference in the email, and it was like one letter difference really. And so they send an email out that says, hey, we're verifying that you need to send $18,000. I've seen people lose hundreds of thousands of dollars with this wire fraud, where it's just one little difference. And so people will go, they take this routing number that they're given, and then they'll wire the funds without verifying. So we're going to go through how to verify this. But then $250,000, I had a client that had $18,000. Literally, they called me right before and they're like, hey, the numbers on this don't sound right. I'm at Wells Fargo right now. And I'm like, well, what do you mean the numbers don't look right? What numbers did you get? Oh, Aaron from the lender sent me the thing to send the wire of 18 grand. And I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. I would say for me, what I've seen is that obviously what we've had is make sure that when the email comes in, the only person that's going to be sending wire instructions is who?
The title company. We will only be the ones sending it, and we're never going to send you a PDF. So if you see a PDF come through, that is a first red flag. And if we're rushing you to send funds and no one else is copied, that's your second red flag to look for.
Yeah, and so what we typically have our clients do is number one, when they get an email first, it says, hey, I just got this to wire these funds. Does this look right? So they'll call us first. What we'll do is typically call the title rep that we've actually been working with, which in this case, Micheline. We'll call and we'll have the buyer verify. So this typically only happens with the buyers in this scenario. The next actually happens with sellers. So primarily, if you're buying, this is a big thing you don't want to have happen to you, because again, I've literally seen people in the Austin area lose $250,000, and it is, I don't think I've seen anybody get their money back once it's wired.
No, because what happens is title companies require same-day wires because they're not revocable, right? And so we want those good funds so that your closing happens, but at the same time, once it's sent, there's very little that we can do to actually get it back.
So the other that we see, so wire fraud's a big one. Again, I think it's really important that you reach out and talk to your title rep and verify every time there's a wire happening. Sometimes they'll bring a check or certified funds instead of sending a wire as well. So that might be another option. Talk with your title rep on that. The other, though, is I've seen with home sellers. And so walk us through, or homeowners, walk us through what you've seen with homeowners almost lose. In fact, some people lose their homes because of it.
Yeah, so one of the common ways that we're seeing land fraud right now is if you own an unimproved parcel of land. because there's no home on it, you're not there every day. This makes it a very easy target for fraudsters to come and steal what is rightfully yours. And so what they're doing is they're making a fake driver's license, they're posing as you, and they're expediting closing, which is really scary.
Yeah. And so I had this happen where it was 55-ish acres, and the person that reached out to me was a referral from somebody, and they had come in as a Zillow lead. So they were a Zillow lead, and then but they came in Dallas and ended up getting referred to me in Dripping Springs. We did our due diligence. They had driver's licenses. They knew every bit of that property. They knew, literally, I was walking the property, and they knew everything about that property possible. And the person didn't live in Texas, right? So a lot of times what you're going to see is somebody who maybe is saying, oh, this person passed away, or I just moved out of town and I'm in California. So you won't actually meet the seller face to face. And so that should be a red flag for most listing agents, is to make sure to meet the seller face to face. But legitimately, if somebody tries to meet you on Zoom, how do you verify? So what are some of the things to verify that these are the actual people reaching out?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the ways that we like to verify is get a copy of their driver's license. You always want to ask for that. And if you're able to get on a Zoom call with them or FaceTime with them and verify that they're a person. Now, this isn't 100% foolproof. We've had instances where people still have land fraud, and they have actually Zoom called these people and these leads pretending to be the seller. So you have to really do your due diligence, stay in touch with your title company, and get them on board as soon as possible. If you feel anything, I think the best is to trust yourself. Trust your gut. You know when something smells fishy.
We're now seeing people with rental properties,
Yes.
right? So they'll put up a rental property for sale that maybe you don't live in, a property that's been vacant, right? So a house that's on a property, but nobody's lived in it for a long time, right? And so they'll use that. So you're seeing different things. So if you're a buyer buying a home, always make sure that your agent and your title rep are going through and making sure that that seller is who they say they are. I've had title companies now, when I've put the listing together, I've actually had title companies call me and say, have you met the client? Have you met them in person? Have you looked at their driver's license? So every title company should be doing due diligence. I know y'all are, because I've actually seen title companies who have let it go. And in the case that I had, we actually caught wires being sent in a Hawaii deal, the way we got in touch with the Secret Service, believe it or not. Yeah, and we actually stopped wire fraud in its tracks. Money had been left and a title had been closed.
That is very fortunate, because most of the time you do not get to stop it.
Yeah, and so what else should we be looking for on wire fraud or home sale frauds like this?
I mean, you just want to make sure that if they're trying to rush a closing, if they're trying to use a power of attorney, if you get pushback from title companies about power of attorneys, this is a big reason why now, is because why don't these people want to sign? Why can't they come sign? We want to make sure that there's a legitimate use for these things, and you want to make sure that you know exactly who you're talking to. I would also have your title company, before you go under contract, pull the current deed history and make sure that nothing looks suspicious there. Oftentimes we're seeing these deeds aren't insured by title companies. They're handwritten and then recorded with the county. Anybody can go and record something on anyone's property for no reason. And so we want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence in those areas.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part too, is so title insurance is supposed to be there for you to, if you do have a title issue with the property, right? Somebody else says they have rights to the property. That's what title insurance is, and that's why typically in Texas, the seller pays for title policy for the buyer, typically in most transactions. The whole purpose of that is, let's say something does happen. Well, now you have an insurance policy that, let's say you were the buyer on that deal, and you put up, in my case, when I had it happen, we actually stopped it from happening, but it was $3.5 million deal that buyer, if they had wired all those funds and that transaction had gone through, $3.5 million would have been lost, right? And so, but let's say that the buyer didn't buy title insurance on that. They have no claim at all. They have nobody to sue, nothing, because they're going to have people to sue for sure, but there's going to have no recourse in that deal. And then the owner of that has lost the property now.
Yeah,
Right.
well, and they're going to have to spend years going through legal battles trying to prove that this property is theirs and that this was fraud, and it's just not worth it. So just take that extra step. reach out to your title person. Make sure that you're asking all the right questions with these potential sellers.
What else? What other fraud are you seeing in the housing space right now?
I mean, our main ones, Jeremy, are typically the land fraud. They're selling your vacant homes, your vacation homes. So if you have sellers that love to go on vacation homes, they're paying attention to your schedule. They're watching their social media, seeing when they're currently out. And it's terrifying how much information they can obtain just from finding your name, looking you up online. You got to be careful.
So if you are buying or selling in the Austin area and you are concerned about this, definitely reach out to us. We'd love to help you as a buyer or seller, but make sure you're using a good title company. So if you're not using us in the Austin area, WFG, Michelin, use them as well. If you are looking to buy outside the area and need a referral for a good agent or title company, always reach out. We'd love to be a good resource for you. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah, appreciate it.